The time period was called the Roaring Twenties due to the lifestyle of the time. People would spend their time partying and listening to jazz.
The Great Depression was the worst economic downturn in history of the industrialization world. It lasted 1929 to 1939, so 10 years. It began after the stock market crash of October 1929.
It wiped out million investors. By 1933, when the Great Depression reached its lowest point, almost 15 million Americans were unemployed and the country's bank had failed.
The president during this time was Hubert Hoover. He was widely blamed for not doing enough to combat the crisis. People think it was his fault. The Wall Street crash of 1929, aka the Black Tuesday, the Great Crash, or the stock market crash, was the most devastating stock market crash in the history of the United States. The market crashed in 1929. Stockholders lost more than $40 billion. Some of the stock market began to get better by the end of 1930, but it wasn't enough. America entered the Great Depression. Over 9,000 banks failed and deposits were not insured. People lost their savings. Banks stopped giving loans. People of all classes stopped buying items, so less items were made and people lost their jobs. People could not pay for the things. Unemployment rates of above 25%. Business fell. The government began the Smoot-Hawley traffic in 1930 to help protect American companies. High tax price for imports and less trade with foreign countries. Farmers had to sell farms because they could not afford it. The drought was in the Mississippi Valley. Farmers struggled with low prices all through the 1920s, but after 1929, things began hard for the workers as well. After the stock market crashed, many businesses started to lay off workers. Many families did not have money to buy things, and consumer demand for manufactured goods fell off. Fewer families were buying new cars or household appliances. People learned to do without new clothing. Many families could not pay their rent. When drought began in the early 1930s, it worsened. These poor economic conditions, the depression and drought hit farmers on the Great Plains the hardest. Many of these farmers were forced to seek government assistance. 21% of all rural families in the Great Plains were receiving federal emergency relief, but still many farmers could not maintain to keep the operations going. They were forced to leave their land. Some looked for work temporarily to provide for their families. When President Franklin Roosevelt took over in 1933, he started the New Deal. The New Deal was a series of programs with financial reforms, regulations, and public worker projects. These programs include support for the unemployed, the farmers, and the elderly. Crime increased during the Great Depression. World War II effectively ended the Great Depression.